All right, Needham LDers. I was pretty impressed with you folks as a group, the folks that I saw this weekend. There's a couple of things I want to say to you, and I would doubt that I'm the only one that's ever said it, but I'm going to say it and then pass it along. And the first one is about values and what Lincoln Douglas was created to be, and the second is going to be about case creation. So the first one is about values. You know, I was pretty disappointed that everybody in the entire tournament that I saw all ran the same value and the same criteria. It's interesting because when the founding fathers of Lincoln Douglas put Lincoln Douglas together, the whole idea was that the resolution should always have words like should in them, which would drive us to look at and examine the critical values on each side. And in this case, we're talking about whether or not a country with the foundations, such as the United States, ought to be involved in actions like funding organizations, governments, that are totalitarian in the manner in which your resolution is. So it really was never written to be about one particular time or one particular government or one snapshot. So when I hear people saying like I should win this round because I have more recency, that just makes me shudder, because it really should be an examination about whose creation, which values should we be embracing, and when we embrace those values and what criteria we get, what is the best world? What is the best place we would be in? And this leads to the second question, and that is, each and every one of you are unique individuals. Each and every one of you is smart, you're capable, and one of the things that I think really hurts you in your presentation is that you're running a common case. I think each and every one of you has your own views, your own beliefs, your own opinions. And if you were to run a case that is entirely yours, that you wrote, that you stitched together, that has your examples in it, even if the main evidence and even if the contingents are the same, just putting it in your own words and delivering it your way will increase your ethos and make judges more compelled to vote for you and give people better attention to what you're saying, both on the affirmative and the negative constructive. So let's go back to values for a second. When we're examining a resolution like the one you have, you really have to ask yourself, what kind of government should we be? Should we be a government? If we go back and look at the preamble to the Constitution, we have a guiding set of principles here. It says, you know, we hold these truths to be all self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then it details those rights, right? So then it really comes down to the question of, is it a government that should be focused on the rights, benefits, and protections of their own citizens above others in the world? Or is it a government that has to understand that these rights are inalienable? They are not delivered or given to you by any particular government, and that therefore anytime there's a government out there that is taking away or suppressing these rights, it's antithetical to the conditions that we formed our government on. It's antithetical to that democracy. So I'm going to challenge you all at least to think about that in that perspective, and not just fall back on a standard value of morality and fall back on your standard criteria, but take a step back and ask yourself, what should this government prioritize when there's a conflict? Should it prioritize the protection and promotion of its own citizens, or should it promote this world view of protection of unalienable rights? And I think that's a great place to start with this resolution. And I think as you start to think about that question and you start to explore that question, you can start looking at values and criteria that derive from that are uniquely yours. And yes, you can put evidence in it, but I would love to see you folks filling your evidence with more philosophical, whether it's Hume or Locke or Rousseau or any of the great philosophers or any of the great writers about what it is to be a democracy, about what the role of a government ought to be, and not be quite so consumed and quite so worried about, you know, a particular policy or a particular role. And really focus on, what is the role of government? Does this United States have a unique obligation to try to crush these unjust governments, these unjust oppressions, these atrocities across the world, like the reason why we entered into World War II? Or is the primary obligation the social contract between the government and its own citizens and upholding the rights of its own citizens? All right, I hope it gave you something to listen for. I didn't want this to go to beyond 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop it there.